Hello, data enthusiast. Ever wondered what powers the shopping experience at one of the world's largest retail stores?
Today we are going to see how Walmart processes billions of data and keep things running seamlessly.
Pulling down the curtain, we are diving deep into the world of data engineering at unimaginable scale.
We're thrilled to bring you an exclusive interview with Walmart's Principal Data Analyst and his Spandan Journey.
How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. How are you?
So, can you share your journey in the data engineering field, like how you got into it and how you got into Walmart? What's your current job? How's your everyday life going?
So, yeah, it's a long story. So, I graduated in computer science and then I started working for Microsoft. So, when you join as a fresh graduate, you are put into multiple projects, right? So, I was put into their marketing division for their analytics work. So, that's the starting, and then I worked there for a couple of years. Then I joined a startup, worked in the same data engineering and data analytics space. Then I moved to Ernst & Young as a consultant, so I was doing mostly consulting work and doing the core analytics work there. And after that I joined Walmart. That's about 5.5 years ago. That's in India. And then I moved from India to US about 2 years ago. Yeah. So I have about 10 plus years of experience now. Yeah, I mean, that's my journey in short. Yeah,
It's inspiring.
And the next question is could you explain how data warehouse playing a major role in Walmart and its operation?
yeah. So I think just not for Walmart, for any company, data is the new thing, right? So data gives you all the insights, drives your business, lets you take the right decisions, gives you the right kind of insights to constantly switch your strategies or build your strategies to cater to that needs of your customers or your even internal stakeholders, right? So in Walmart, data, we have millions and billions rows of data, right? So, but to make sense of it, you need data warehousing, right? You need to first have the data structured. You need to have the entity relationship kind of established. Only then you can further go and derive more insights or more analytics out of it. So in Walmart, in any sphere of things, you can think about analytics involved, starting from the whole purchase funnel, right? So starting from when a person sees an item on a website to actually making the purchase. So every phase, the data is getting collected. So that's one way. We also use data to understand what the market demands are, what the sales projections are, what customers want outside Walmart, and how do you make your assortment or the listings more aggressive or more competitive. So all of those things are the places where data is used, and data is the king. It is basically the glue that keeps everything stick together.
So, how does Walmart uses NoSQL databases, and how it's better than traditional relational databases?
So I think it has both the non-traditional, non-structured data, and you basically with the advent of more our internet, we see more free-flowing data. For example, what people talk about on a social media, for example. How do you derive insights? What's really they're talking about, the themes and all of it, right? So we usually there are vector databases where we vectorize it and keep it, and then we have also structured data our traditional GCP cloud-based MySQL, or you have REST-ODB, Hive tables. So we try to derive them, and finally most of the data in a structured format, but when you collect the data, it is an unstructured format, and you basically do all your modeling, your NLP on top of that to derive the insights. And then when the insight is ready, either it gets surfaced into a table, or it will probably go to a slide, or an insights piece. So it depends on the particular use case that you're working on. But in general, I would say the unstructured data is stored for mostly NLP kind of thing. Also video, image, everything is getting collected, so they are not really you cannot call it like very, very structured, right? So all of those are being stored, and also the structured data is also there to finally make the aggregations and insights and all of those things. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
So you said that you'll be handling lots of data and it's basically data centric. So how do you manage and optimize the pipelines to manage such kind of huge data that flows in every day?
Yeah. So basically we use Python. So we usually use NumPy, and there are TensorFlow, so many like available open sources. You should leverage them to really build your things, and so much of algorithm available to how do you optimize your pipelines, how do you optimize data flows. So I think using what is available already and building on top of that is the key. Like, it's more like applied. I wouldn't say you are really fundamentally cracking or building an algorithm, but you're probably leveraging algorithms to build those pipelines, which makes your work easier. Also, for a matter that somebody has put that energy to basically make it very optimum. So you can always use whatever is available, open source or even within the company, you can always leverage. But if you want to build something from the very scratch, you would probably use Python to basically build those components, the modules, and then So yeah, it depends on what kind of data you're dealing with and what's the size of your data, and what's your final destination of the data. So it also depends on the infrastructure that you run on. So it's just not about you just create a pipeline which probably needs, let's say, 5 dB of space, but you only have 1 dB of space. So how do you then optimize with those kind of constraints in mind is the engineering bit of it, right? So it's always a trade-off between your speed and your space, right? So with the given constraints, how do you make your pipelines best? What algorithms you use? You do comparative study, you see benchmarkings, and then you basically build your pipelines around it. And of course, you need to have monitoring to see how they're performing over time, and how to improve it periodically.
Talking about constraints, what are some of the challenges that you face while integrating database?
So I think the major challenge is first to collect the data. So often data is very, very scattered everywhere. So how do you really collect them is the question. Do you know the right source of it? The business of the data, right? So what does the data really talk about? That you can't just blindly go and fetch some random data. So data is there. You will find a lot of data, but what data is relevant is very, very small compared to the whole population of data. So it's very important to collect the right data. And the next challenge is to get a clean data. So you often see the data is not clean, and probably as a data scientist or a data analyst, you will spend probably 30-40% time of yours in real-time scenario just to clean the data. So that will involve maybe regex kind of thing. It can be NLP that you use to, So for example, I'll give you an example. Let's say two people are on social media. You post on Twitter, and somebody writes BLK as black, somebody writes BK as black, somebody like black, somebody like bluish black. So how do you really cohesively understand all of them are talking about black? So those kind of clean up. Even if you're in a structured data, even if you have been able to extract what is a color, but to derive all of them the same is probably you spend a significant or a good chunk of your time to really clean the data up, right? At times you'll find the revenue numbers with dollars, at times without dollars, at times with commas. There's so much formatting, and we're talking about global data, right? So different countries use different formats. How do you really homogenize them? How do you automatically detect and homogenize them? So all of this cleanup is probably the second challenge that I think. And of course, to run such large amount of data in your like infrastructure, that also needs to scale up. But you always probably do not have budget to scale up all the time. So you need to see how do you really optimize, what is the best way to do it. So you probably will run some experiments to see that what I should target more frequently, what I should target less frequently. So all this is a part of experimentation. And that's how you basically prioritize or deprioritize or optimize your whole system. So was clear? I mean, you can ask follow-up questions if you have like.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
And you said that there are a lot of challenges and a lot of optimization involved in terms of cleaning data pre-processing, right? So in recent times, the LLM AI emergence, like how do you see that LLM and AI can help in data engineering or data warehouse?
I think if you ask me, the future is the applied AI. I do not think the data analysts will probably build model, but they will be applying model. It's an applied AI kind of model where it will evolve to, and basically prompt engineering, right? You would just ask AI to probably clean up or do some insights, right? Or even to, for example, to write test cases. Today you are writing test cases, right, for your own code, but you can ask AI to write test cases, right? Something like that. I mean, there can be a lot of applications of AI in this space. And of course, like you probably would not, as a data analyst, you probably would not create models right now, but you definitely would leverage models that is available packaged format to derive insights, to derive analytics, right? So I think that's how it's going to be significantly, like probably you don't have to write SQL 2 years straight down the line. Probably it will be just AI that will be doing all of this data crunching. But to get there, you probably need to do a lot of research, like which model to be used, how to be used, performance benchmarking. All of those I think will come into the role slowly.
So like the whole world is based on data these days. So in fact, like in whichever company, like in case like Walmart, data flows through every other department in the company. So how effective the communication is, like what is the key importance of communication with collaborating with multidisciplinary teams inside the company? How?
Yeah, so I think that's a very good point, that the communication is key, right? So not everybody understands everything equally. So you really need to understand what your target audience understands, and you need to mold your insights or your representation in that way so that they understand it. Make it simple, don't make it more very complex for people to understand. I know there are a lot of things which like in a black box, and try to do not go much deeper into the technological fit, but I would say focus on the outcome of your thing. So mostly when you're communicating with business, you would probably only be talking about the outcome and not necessarily how fancy technology that you've used. Whereas if you're talking to a tech VP or a tech director, you probably would go deeper into the technology stack that you've used, right? So it depends on what kind of stakeholder you're talking to. For example, product may be more interested in the impact. So you need to constantly change your line of communication for the same work when depending on your stakeholder. And like if you're talking to your peer, you probably would just talk about like whether it's integer. I'm very simplistically, whether it's integer or string, right? So that kind of granular details. I mean, at a director level, he doesn't care what you use, right? But what he probably cares is how optimized the code is, what's my TTL, what's the time to get the data, and all of those things, right? So it really depends on who your stakeholder is.
So, what kind of trends in NoSQL and data warehousing would affect the future, like impact the future, according to you?
I think if you ask me, I would say AI is the future, even if it is not today, but maybe 5 years down the line. I give you an example. We all are from India, so let's say if I ask you that is automated driving a reality in India today, you'll say probably no, right? But what about if you have built infrastructure where only the automated cars run? Like if you have a special highway only for the automated cars, then it's a reality, right? So I think, may not be today, but 5 years down the line, India may have the infrastructure. So then that becomes a reality very quickly, right? Similarly here, like today you might see companies are not there yet, but they are all evolving. And if you look at it, how much companies are investing into AI, yes, it is going to be the next. There's no denial about it. And it will, I don't think there will be anything called structured data, unstructured data. I think the divisions will blur over the time and it will just become data and everything will be unstructured. And how do you write your models, how do you then derive insights from it is going to be the key of your capability.
And how do you think AI and LLM, the automation part, coming into the picture of data warehousing or data engineering? Yes, if it ever gets.
So data warehousing, if you ask, then I think it will be fully automated by AI. At least it can read data and suggest you what kind of structure you should use. So I don't think the building pipeline is still going to be there because that's very core engineering. But what is the most optimal algorithm or building those pipelines, the overall turnaround time for building those applications will reduce drastically over time. We probably won't need like 10 people to build a pipeline, and probably would need 5 people to build a pipeline.
Okay, as you said, AI will take over at least some part of the job. So, what do you think? Which skill we should be equipped with for the future?
I do not think that AI will like take away jobs. I think it will help or aid people to do more high value jobs, right? So I don't think it will completely replace today what you focus on. So for example, maybe 30 years ago, people used to keep ledger books. Like when you go to the bank, they used to keep ledger books. They do it manually. Today, there's no need. So they can look. But did that cut down jobs? Probably not. But we don't know what will happen. So that kind of inference is a little bit risky to say that it will completely displace people. Of course, it will displace job profiles, but will it displace jobs? We don't know. We don't know how the new generation of people, graduates, you or your next generation, how they're going to react to it. Like our parents' generations probably were very averse to the idea of computers, right? Our generation is not. So next generation, maybe AI and LLM would be just the way our life is, right? It's the way of living your life, right? So we can't think of a day without internet, but our parents had. So yeah, I think it will evolve. I don't think it will take away jobs, so to say. It will definitely take off job profiles, and people will put their focus more on the high value items and not necessarily building and like into the low value items and spend so much time there. So I think that and the next question was what you should focus on. I think the future is AI. There's denial, so I'd rather be prepared for it. At least the applied bit of it you should be first start with, and then probably go deeper into the mathematics, statistics behind it to build models, and that's probably a phase 2. But immediately, I think you could think about how will you use AI in your day-to-day job, like.
Like how do you see the role of data analytics professional scaling up in global level, like socially or in education sector?
I have no much experience in education sector, to be honest. But in corporates or in profit-making entities, I think this profile is slowly get merged into DS. But even if you have, like the fresh graduates, if you today look out for, it's harder and harder to hire data analysts because there's not many people who come with that kind of aptitude. And data analytics is just, I know people talk about only the technology part of it, but data analytics is just not the technology part of it. there's a lot of like thought leadership that the profile brings onto the table. So I think the thought leadership is still needed, and I think data analytics is slowly will probably either will get some people will get merged into like DS AI, very core AI DS things, and some will move into maybe more like product management spaces where you bring the thought leadership, and slowly I think product management and the DA kind of thing will kind of get combined into this. Is my hunch is that people who are very good at thinking, taking data-driven decisions, or doing experimentations, or finding out A versus B. I think that will be a core skill for the product managers, and some of these people slowly, this role probably will get reduced, or the number of people who are in this field will get reduced in very small section. Probably, if you ask me, it will be something like, it's like exaggeration, but probably like mainframe, right? It's there, some people work on it, but not many people today are being skilled up to do that work. So I think 5-10 years down the line, that will happen. That very less number of people will be what we call analytics, but I think this role will evolve into more DS, AI kind of thing, or into like more data-driven product management, product analytics kind of roles. That's what my hunch is.
So for the previous question I asked, you said data analytics, LLM will be the future job will be more into creating more impactful things, right? So are you telling that merging data analytics and data science into more project managerial role? Or
no, I'm saying that the people who are doing it today, the way data analytics is, if you are very, very your mathematics is fundamentally strong, if your statistics is fundamentally strong, you would probably go more into more model building phase. Like today you write SQL, then you write small models, either leveraging someone else's model or building your own model, or tuning someone else's model, and you will bring the same kind of things because your data is different. So I'm not saying that the role will completely go, but what I'm trying to say is that what they do today would be slightly inclined to what we know as data scientists, or like AI engineers, the kind of thing that they do today. So I think that will become part of your data analytics profile. Or similarly, like some portion of the product will also get merged into, like what they do today will probably get merged into. It's very, very difficult to say now. It's probably like, I don't know what will happen, whether this job profile will completely get erased and people will be merged into this 2 different or 3-4 different things, whether it can business, it can be product, it can be core like model building capabilities of AI engineers and things like that. But yeah, that it's difficult to predict what will happen, but my point of view is that it probably will get like, you will be like more skilled with these kind of attributes more, and whether you call it a data analyst profile or you call it a data scientist profile or a ML engineer profile, that's a separate discussion. But the core work that you'll be doing is mostly leaning toward what's the data ML engineer is probably doing today.
So they say that building a pipeline is more like plumber's work. It's not finished because of the complexity. So have you ever faced such difficulties or challenges while managing building a pipeline?
I think building a pipeline is one thing, but to really optimize a pipeline and to make to improve the SLAs of the pipeline is another thing. So where the lags are, so you might have like 5 different phases where the 1 second is getting distributed. Let's say you call an API, it takes 1 second to give you an answer, but where does it 1 second get spent to knowing that is very important, and then look at that funnel or that portion where it is taking the highest time and reduce that, so the overall turnaround time for the API becomes like reduced. So I think it's like, it's kind of plumbing that you do not really, when you go for a plumbing work, you do not really have to see everything, but you should know where it is getting clogged, and that's why you need right meters, right mechanisms to log, to see that what is it. And yeah, so I think it's a right kind of parallelism.
So data is new buzzword.
It's not new,
Essentially.
but yeah, it's been some time now.
In the world of data domain, what do you think? And what's your favorite data? Let's say data wing, particular wing of data. What's your favorite?
I think for me, it's more like insights. What's the insights you bring out of data? People do a lot of aggregations, like how do you build a story? Like how do you build a story from the raw data to the final outcome, right? That is very powerful. So it's not just building dashboard. It's not about just building pipelines. These are the avenues through which you reach the outcome. I think what is very important skill is to building the story, to know that what ties out where, and to know your system or your business end to end is a skill. So you should be knowing that how this data is explainable. Like how do I explain this data, right? Does it make it so when you start doing an analysis, you might end up getting like 1,000 different analysis, but is 1,000 different analysis useful? Probably not. Only 2 of them may be useful. So what makes the story more powerful is important, and that's what excites me. That I may spend like 5 days finding out a very core insight. Like for example, let's say when your price is lower than your competitors, people buy. But how do you establish that is the only factor? But there's some other factors. This catalog quality is a driving factor. Is the image that you're seeing and the description that you're seeing and that is an important factor. Whether what other events going around you is important. What really drives the customer convert? Like what makes a customer? So you may, when you start analyzing, you may find 30 things, but what is a core story? What is different from what I have hypothesized? That is yeah. So building this hypothesis, test the hypothesis, and then building the insight from it is I think key. And you may see some hypothesis getting established, so then or you are rejecting or accepting. So based on that, you basically need to tune your narrative to get to the real story of it. I think that's very, very exciting for me.
Currently, the world is fast changing, right? Every day you are seeing new LLMs, new version of LLMs, 405B, Meta AI, LLM, all this stuff. So, how do you keep yourself updated for a fast changing environment, and what are things you keep updated?
I think you should spend a good portion of your time learning new things, what's happening around you. Otherwise, you'll just get outdated the way things are just moving. Spend some time, at least I would say 20% of your time, to learning what's happening, learning what's new, and how you can leverage from it. That's the way I was telling in the beginning. You don't have to build everything on your own. There are a lot of people are already doing it. How do you leverage it is the thing. So that's why you should learn. You should always keep your eyes and ears open to see what's happening in this industry and navigate through it.
We saw that you got an award for Men's Pipeline.
I don't know. I got many awards. I don't remember. It's been some time, but yeah.
So what is this Men's Pipeline about?
So Mint is basically market intelligence. Pipeline was, I think I built some pipeline for something, optimization or something. I don't remember. I do so many things that it just, and it's been some time. I think maybe last year. Yeah. So there's some. I think some optimization work for which
for market intelligence.
Yeah. So how do you really get how do you probably derive insights from the competitor data?
So, what would you what your advice would be for students who are aiming to become data analyst or an engineer? What skill sets should they develop and focus more on?
That very interesting question. At this point, nobody knows where these roles are going to get evolved into. I would say you should have a good stronghold of your mathematics, statistics, the basic AI, deep learning or whatever, like the whole AI stack. I wouldn't say you go right now if you were looking for data analytics at this point in time. It's not needed to go very deep into how the algorithms have been built or how the LM, but you should know the workings of it, and you should know how to apply them, whether it fits to your use case. I think slowly and slowly it will become your bread and butter. Like the way you are using any of the Python libraries, you probably would be using those models to do any analysis. So, and that application applied AI is going to be a thing for, and then very soon that will be the thing. So maybe the core AI engineers or researchers will build models, but you would be applying them, applied AI bit of it. I think that's where, right now you should focus on, but even going there, I think it's very important to focusing on your fundamentals, mathematics, statistics, normal Python, just so that you're prepared to battle what is new, so that you can build on top of it. If your fundamentals are weak, I don't think you would be able to. It would be very easy to battle it through. You have a long battle to then fight. Right? You should build your core skills on which anything else is built on. Today it is it's llama. Tomorrow it is, let's say, grass. Right? So unless your fundamentals are strong, you won't be able to cope up to that. Then it's nearly impossible to really get yourself from 0 to 1,000 and then understand grass. By the time you do that, from grass, maybe lamb has come up, right? So
it was nice having you. I think we have an edge over the data warehouse and with some sort of clarity.
okay, good. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
No worries.